It has been said. That in the end of all things, we would find a new beginning. But as the shadow once again crawls across our world, and the stench of terror drifts on a bitter wind, the people pray for strength and guidance. They should pray for the mercy of a swift death. For I have seen what the darkness hides. I don't think it's safe here.
All right. All right, everybody. So this is A Hero Emerges. This is our first Diablo 3 panel for BlizzCon. And like I said, Demon Hunter, we're going to show you a lot of awesome stuff that we've done with the classes this year. A lot of new information. As I said, my name's Jay Wilson. I'm the game director on Diablo 3. I have a bunch of great guys here with me. To my left, Christian Leitner, who is our art director on Diablo 3. Paul Bird-Warzeka, who is our lead character artist. Leonard Boyarsky, lead world designer. Yeah, give it up for Leonard. Wyatt Chang, technical game designer. Kevin Martins, lead content designer. And Julian Love, our lead technical artist. All right, so today we introduced our fifth and final class for Diablo 3, and that is the Demon Hunter. So we're going to talk a lot about the Demon Hunter today, how we came to this decision, and what she's really all about. So the first question might be, why the Demon Hunter? Why did we choose this class? So the first one's kind of obvious. A couple of you, like maybe one or two, guessed that we might put a class that shoots bows and crossbows and throws things. Like, it was a good guess, those one or two of you that actually got it. So really the Demon Hunter fills out our archetypes. So we knew from the beginning that we wanted, you know, a blasty wizard type and a big barbarian and a pet class. And we knew we wanted a class that really used conventional ranged weaponry. So she was really one of the earliest classes that we chose, but she was very different when we first chose to make her. So we really felt this character fit the Diablo universe. We wanted a very dark character, an almost obsessed anti-hero. And this clicker doesn't like to click. We really liked the idea of a bounty hunter. That was really a lot of the drive for what we wanted. We wanted a character that felt like this is somebody who really hunts down the enemy. So, some aspects of, whenever we decide to make a class, we always kind of like to boil it down to like the top three things. What's this class all about? So the first one's pretty obvious. We knew we wanted what we call a conventional ranged class, which is a class that operates at range but uses kind of weaponry to do that. So we also liked the idea of this bounty hunter vibe, so we wanted to get in this idea of like gadgets and traps, and basically a bounty hunter prepares for the fight, so we wanted to really focus on that with this character. And we always look for a way to do more fantastical stuff with a character. you know, the Diablo 3 classes are very showy at times. So here we have Shadow Magic. Shadow Magic is really kicking into the idea for the Demon Hunter that she really likes to dabble in anything she can to make her more effective at hunting down the enemy. So she's not adverse to, you know, using dark magic or, you know, hey, if I found out if you take the spleen of this demon and carve it down into a bow, it actually gives the arrows actually go like 20% faster. So she knows kind of every trick. She knows more about demons than anyone in the Diablo universe.
All right, my name is Christian Leitner. I'm the art director on Diablo 3, and I'm going to go through a very brief history of the development of the actual Demon Hunter. What I want to show you guys is how things usually start out. We knew early on it's going to be a ranger, obviously, and this clicker is, there you go. And from the get-go, we actually decided that this was going to be a ranger from the very early on, that we knew that we wanted to have a ranger class. And obviously class design and development takes a lot of time and effort on the development team, and we really take a lot of care in making sure that this is as much fun to play and as much fun for you guys to enjoy. Now, what happened here is we early on started with early concepts, and what you can see here is a woodland ranger concept. And that already looked pretty ranged, obviously. You can see the arrows in the back. And that was a good starting point. We really liked that stuff. And what we said to ourselves, well, we also want to make sure that it's still read a little bit on the swifter side, and also a little bit more deadly, so to speak. So we add a little bit more of an edge to the character. But that still wasn't quite where we wanted the character to be. And while we already liked it a lot, and we really thought there were some really great concepts going on with it already, there's something missing. We didn't quite know what we needed to add to it. What we started to do is we started to add elements to them to give it a little bit of a twist. Most of the Diablo classes we do, we always give it a little bit of a twist, a little bit of an angle, a little bit of a little extra something. In this case, what we started doing is we started adding certain melee aspects. We had short daggers, short swords, even fist weapons. And you can see some armor on the chest there. And as we iterated on this, we even added a little bit more of that. We had cowls and a lot of different elements like that. And as you can see, a lot of our products take a lot of development. One of the things that what we started to realize as we went through all these concepts was that it really didn't start to read ranged anymore. It started reading more and more like an assassin. It started reading a little bit like a melee class. And so really, at that point, we sort of said to ourselves, you know what, we need to take a break. We sort of need to slow down, rethink what we're doing. And what we did is we sort of decided to look a little bit more at more concepts and really sort of go back to the basics and sort of rethink from the get-go what we wanted to do with this class. There's a few questions we asked ourselves at this point. One of them was that we had announced the monk class the previous year, and we said to ourselves, you know what, we really wanted to make a class now that was a little bit on the darker side, the one that you didn't quite know where they stood with in the world and what their outlook was and everything. We also knew that we wanted to make the class a little bit more mysterious so that you didn't quite know the history about the character. The other thing that was really important to us was that we're huge fans of Diablo 2, obviously, and we really want to make sure that we had a class in our lineup that was a little bit more on the medieval side, a little bit more gothic, and really harken back and pay tribute to the Diablo 2 classes. Of course, most importantly, we want to make sure that it read ranged. So what do? We came up with a Demon Hunter, and that's what you're seeing today. So how do you make a Demon Hunter? First off, we started with the craziest thing we could think of. And we said, well, what if it was a demonic demon hunter? What if it's a demon hunting demons? And as you can see, here's a concept of a fully blown demon. And we really liked this concept. We thought it was a lot of fun. It only had two problems with it. One of them was that in the Diablo universe, our heroes really have to be human. They're pitted against the hordes of hell, and having a hero that's demonic would be probably a problem. Also, there was a problem in terms of maybe designing gameplay around the changeling or shape-shifting class. So we went back and said to ourselves, well, what if we just make him part demon? And in this particular case, you see the concept with a very large demon hunter concept design that has a demonic arm. One of the issues we had at that point was we were worried about the fact that maybe, well, if this guy walks into town and he's trying to sell his wares or try to buy something, maybe the townspeople wouldn't quite go along with it, seeing the demon arm. And also, the size and the bulkiness of them at this point felt very strong, and we weren't sure if it would really feel ranged or fast and swift and agile as we were hoping for. And of course, the arm implies melee because it's so thick and strong. Now, we changed all those things at that point. We said, you know what, let's go a little sleeker, a little bit more agile. We decided to go with a design that only had armor up until the rib cage, and then below the rib cage was very light and leathery. We also decided to go with dual crossbows because we thought that would really be cool. We were still holding on to the demon arm. We thought we maybe could pull it off. But what we started finding is as people were playing it, they really wanted to hit things with the demon arm. They felt like it's just something you really want to use. So at some point we sort of had to say goodbye to it. And again, it also messed with the human part. So last but not least, what we ended up with was this design, and it's very close to the previous one. And as you can see, it had a cowl. It's a little bit more on the dark side and a little bit mysterious. It still reads very fast and swift. And of course, we also want to make sure it had a dark vibe to it, that it really read very anti-hero-ish in that sense. And also a little bit of that medieval vibe that we're talking about. And of course, most importantly, that it read ranged. And I'm going to pass this on to Paul, and he'll show you how it was done in 3D. Thanks.
All right, so I'm Paul Warzga. I'm the character lead on Diablo 3. And I'm going to pick up where Christian just left off there and walk you guys through the modeling, texturing, and the animation of the Demon Hunter. So right off the bat, we had this concept, and at this point we're like, okay, this character, she hits the mark. Yeah, there's like two guys that got that joke there. So we had this character, and she was kind of a sexy character. I know Christian didn't get into that very much, but at this point we had some characters like the monk. You have this holy monk, you've got this kind of creepy witch doctor. You have the barbarian female, if you're into that sort of thing. Awesome. But we wanted somebody who's physically attractive, and for all the ladies in the crowd, don't worry about it. We're working on the male demon hunter right now. We're trying to make him equally as attractive. Thanks, Kristen. So she hit the ranged archetype, obviously. We also really wanted to have a character that's a much darker vibe, because like Christian said, we've got a holy monk, you've got the kind of flamboyant witch doctor or wizards. So yeah, we wanted a dark character, and honestly, she just looked plain cool at this point. So we take this concept, and it's time for us to start asking ourselves, well, how do you gear this character up? You know, we've had a character who's got a cowl. Well, how do you upgrade a cowl? We got to start thinking about how those caps work. And we also start thinking about what makes the character visually distinct from the rest of the classes. So the character team keyed in on three big things with this character. Number one, the character has a scarf. When you are running with a demon hunter, you know, out of the corner of your eye, you might see that character that's just a little ways away from the crowd. She's got that flowing cloth. Right away, you know that the demon hunter's there. You're also going to see, from game cam, you're being able to see this character's legs, unlike the, you know, the wizard and the monk. And also, we keyed into this arm guard, which kind of helps her silhouette pop a little bit more. So what we do is, the very first thing we do on the modeling side is we go ahead and create what we call a naked look for the Demon Hunter. We do this with all our classes. This is the look that it's basically before you've done any gearing up. We put this together and we hand it on to animation, and in this case, Non went ahead and he came up with a bunch of poses that he thought really captured the attitude of the character. And the cool thing, at least for the inside the team, is that this is the first time you see a character that you get it. Like, you see it and you're like, okay, I get the attitude of this character. She's kind of pissed off, you know, she's angry. She's just got a lot of attitude. So based on that, we go ahead and we build up kind of a geared up version of her. And again, we're really conscious of things like her silhouette. We want her to read really quick. We want to really reinforce the attitude. And most importantly in Diablo is, at least from the modeling standpoint, is this talk of readability. So a character like this, she's very strappy, she's kind of gadgety. You know, you can see there's actually a lot of stuff going on, but when you zoom out to, 30 feet above her head or so, you want to be able to see that stuff and read the characters. So we group together colors and values and that sort of thing. So at this point, we've got a model that we're happy with, and the animators are going to go ahead and take that, and they're going to start filling out her animation suite with all the cool things that a Demon Hunter does. And we go ahead and we start putting together some of her tools. So like the Demon Hunter in this case, obviously she's going to use bows and crossbows. If you guys go play her out on the show floor today, you're going to see she's also the only character who can dual wield pistol crossbows. So as I say, we've passed it on at this point to animation. Yeah, and you can kind of sort of see the fruits of everybody's labor. We've got a character that they've really taken advantage of her kind of pose-to-pose action. Pulling a trigger is probably not as exciting as swinging an axe or a sword, but they really reinforce her character by just the full body poses she takes when she shoots stuff, and also taking advantage of her skills. And I'm going to leave it for Wyatt and Julian to get into the skills, because she just does some really cool stuff. And with that, that's it for me. I'm going to pass it on to Leonard. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. I'm Leonard Boarski. I'm the lead world designer on Diablo 3. And I'm going to take you through the lore behind the Demon Hunter and really talk about her background. The Demon Hunter is our most diverse class. What does that mean? She's not one type of person, or she doesn't come from one social class. She could really come from any walk of life. Demon Hunters are chosen. They're not born into their class like all of our other classes are. This clicker doesn't work very well. They're bound together by their thirst for revenge. Revenge on demons who have slaughtered their family and friends. The Demon Hunters are recruited by other Demon Hunters after they've had these encounters with demons that would crush lesser people. Like I said, they aren't born, they're made. Like I said, they're recruited. They don't have a homeland per se. They're nomadic. They're always chasing down demons. They really want to crush demons. That's their reason for living. They do have a base up in the borderlands up north where they train new recruits, though. If you take the best aspects of a ranger and a bounty hunter class and combine it with an epic revenge quest, you end up with a really excellent, challenging class to play. And on top of that, they dual wield crossbows. I mean, what more do you need than that? We need new batteries is what we need, actually. So what drives the Demon Hunter? The Demon Hunter is our obsessed hero. She'll do whatever it takes to hunt down demons and eradicate them from the world of Sanctuary. When you saw what Christian was talking about, we took her partially into like the demon world, and we really wanted to show that she dabbles in the dark side. She's not afraid to get her hands dirty, so to speak. So we didn't want her to seem demonic. So we didn't want to like really go into having her have demonic parts or the demon arm or anything like that. So what we did is we pulled back on that and we gave her the glowing eyes to kind of show that she's probably been messing in areas that maybe she shouldn't have been, but just to really show that she's totally obsessed and that she'll do whatever it takes to get rid of demons. And she's a stalker of demons. She uses her traps and gadgets and lies in wait for demons. She really wants to strike terror into their hearts. She wants demons to feel what they usually cause in human beings. She wants them to know the terror of being stalked. And finally, she realizes the true stakes of what's going on. All the other classes have their own reasons for doing what they're doing. The witch doctor and the monk are in it for their religious ideals. The wizard is in it for personal gain. The barbarian is in it for his people. But the demon hunter is in it for one thing and one thing only, and that's for killing demons. She understands the true stakes of the eternal conflict between the high heavens and the burning hells, and she's going to do whatever it takes to make sure that hell doesn't get a foothold in Sanctuary.
Hi everyone, my name is Wyatt Chang and I work as a technical game designer. Now we've established that the Demon Hunter, primarily about ranged, shadow, gadgets, and traps, we need some skills that kind of bring that to life. We want skills that sell those three concepts. So the first skill we're going to talk about today is called Bola Shot. Bola Shot sells two themes really well, ranged and gadgets. You can kind of see the way she runs around, she shoots out a bola, the bola wraps itself around the target and explodes. I really like this skill in the sense that it feels really tactical. That delay is kind of a drawback, but it's also something you can use to your advantage in the right situations. You're going to see a theme in all the skills that we talk about today. We always want to try and push the core concepts, the range, the gadgets, and the shadow. The next skill we're going to talk about today is Vault. Vault's a movement skill. Obviously, the Barbarian has leap attack, and the Wizard has teleport, and we wanted to make sure that all of our classes have a way to get around the battlefield. In this case, we wanted to sell the Shadow theme. Initially, we kind of talked about things like Shadow Vault and stuff like that, because we said, oh, well, we have to have a Shadow theme. But at this time, we were like, you know what, let's just call it Vault and let the art speak for itself. You know, there's no need to have to weave these concepts into every single skill. So we have the artistic representation has some acrobatics to it, has some shadow themes to it. It's basically a way to take a solid mechanic, wrap it up with the aesthetic that we're trying to sell, and deliver something that we think will be fun for the players. The next skill is Spike Trap. As we talked about, one of her themes is also going to be traps and gadgets. This is not unlike some of the assassin gameplay that you might have seen in Diablo 2. In this case, we want to sell, again, the shadow theme and the gadgets theme. You know, we just take an ordinary trap spell, weave in some shadow themes in the art, kind of brings out the flavor. It differentiates her from the other characters. Another thing I really like about Spike Trap is it has that sense of preparation, you know, because we want players to know the Demon Hunter is somebody who goes to sleep at night and dreams about killing demons. She wakes up in the middle of the night and says, oh, you know, I have this great idea for a trap that'll be awesome for killing demons. And she makes it and she goes back to sleep and she wakes up and she, you know, kills a lot of demons. That's her thing. Also selling the idea of ranged attacks is grenades. I love this skill also in our game because it's showing off that we have a 3D engine, and so you can actually bounce the grenades off of the walls, off of the floors. I think it'll be an awesome way for players to try and come up with some creative uses for the grenades, throwing them around corners. It actually bounces around, and it shows, again, it sells the Demon Hunter's themes, ranged attacks, gadgetry, preparation, planning. This is premeditated demon killing going on. And finally, I want to show you guys multi-shot. Multi-shot, some of you guys might remember from D2, but it's been amped up and brought to the next level for Diablo 3. We know multi-shot was a hugely popular skill in Diablo 2, so we wanted to make sure that we get the clicker going. There we go. We want to bring back that mechanic that we know, the skill people love, but artify it up for something more appropriate.
Hey everyone, my name is Kevin. I'm going to be your content designer today. So on the second half of the show, we have a lot of new and improved skills and skill systems and other character things to show you. On the new side, we're going to show you a complete overhaul of the skill system itself, a launch of new class skills for each of the classes, a new trait system, and the introduction of the ever-elusive talisman. So let's get right to it. We have a lot to cover. All right, so skill UI. So when you have a bunch of cool skills like what Wyatt was showing you, the next thing we need to work on is to make them deep and replayable and to make it accessible. And on that end, let's break down the skill UI from last year and talk about some of the problems we had with it. So this is the one we had last year, and it was just big. All the choices were there at once. You could see the whole tree, which was a good thing. But it covered your character. It encouraged people to spend their skill points too widely, and experienced Diablo players know you want to choose fewer skills and spend more deeply into them. It had these 3 different class lines, which were a little bit arbitrary, and we learned that a little bit later. So we took this and we said, okay, how can we make this all more accessible without losing any of the depth? So we went to a tab system. So this was an improvement. In a major way, it made everything bigger. You could see it all easier. It compartmentalized it into the tabs. But with all these skill lines, honestly, fitting them all in there to be equal across the tabs, some of the skills were a little bit arbitrary. You still couldn't see all your options at once. You had to skip back and forth between the tabs. And people often, when they're leveling up, actually forgot to check on the other tabs and ended up spending more points in whichever tab they first chose to spend points in. So we went to a list approach. So this we were getting a little bit closer on. On the left-hand side, we had all 7 of your skills in one place. So this was a major improvement for us. You could see your entire sort of character build all in one place. And on the right, when you were choosing new skills, it was getting better. You could see everything bigger, you could see what you could choose next, and you could start thinking ahead by scrolling down the list. But it wasn't quite good enough. So here's the current UI. So we kept everything with the 7 skills on the left. And on the right-hand side, we made that whole window a lot bigger, so you could still plan ahead, but you could see all your choices available at one time, making the entire skill UI a lot more accessible, and at a glance, you could see what you could spend. But let's take a look at this in action. All right, so this became very straightforward, and again, this sort of UI idea that at a glance you know what to do. You look on your left and you can choose a new skill or spend points in your old skills. So this was good. Let's spend some points and get a new skill. Okay, and so choosing a new skill, very straightforward, and upgrading them is also a lot easier. Frankly, if you see a blinking plus sign, that means you can spend points in it. If there's no plus sign, that means you've maxed it out. Now, a little extra insight into the 7 skills. At the beginning of the game, every skill that you choose has 5 skill points you can put into it, but throughout the course of the game, you have ways to deepen that and augment the skills so that you can spend more points into them. So initially, you know, it's much easier to make builds. It's easier to think ahead. It's easier to respec when you want to do that as well, and you can try a lot of things very rapidly. But there's a lot more to the skill system than just this.
So a little bit earlier on, we showed you some of the Demon Hunter skills that we're excited about, but we've also been working on fleshing out and getting new skills for the 4 classes that we had already announced. I'll show you some of those today. So obviously, for the Barbarian, we're going to flesh him out, and we knew that he needed a ranged attack. And so here's an example of Ancient Spear. Now, we don't want to turn the Barbarian into a ranged class, so this is something that feels very appropriate for him. We want to sell the themes that he's strong, he's tough, he's melee. So we had to come up with, something that felt appropriate for that. Over for the Wizard, we're bringing back another fan favorite. In the same way we brought back Multi-Shot, bring back some Meteor. Meteor was also a really popular skill in D2. People liked it. We liked the gameplay of it. So we brought it back, artified it up, and I'll tell you right now, when you get some runes in Meteor, that's like just, it's 5 times the fun. I'll also talk about the Witch Doctor. I mentioned earlier, I alluded that we kind of want some movement options for every class. In the Spirit Walk is the movement skill for the Witch Doctor. We wanted, again, something that stays thematically consistent for every class. In the Witch Doctor's case, he's about spirits and voodoo, so a Spirit Walk ability where he turns incorporeal, he can walk around, he can walk through enemies, he can go around a corner, and then when Spirit Walk ends, he comes back and his physical form becomes teleported to wherever his spirit form is when the ability ends. It's pretty cool. And then finally, the new skill I'm going to show you today is the Monk. This particular skill is called Wave of Light. He summons a mystical bell that actually he shoots out as a range. It's kind of a combination of a melee and ranged attack. One of the things I really like about this skill is we need to differentiate the Barbarian from the Monk. They're both melee classes. In this case, the Monk, he's about combining mystic arts with martial arts. And so I like the evocative imagery that happens here. Just the concept of a mystical bell that he fires off just is very vivid.
All right, back to me. So I'm going to tell you about a new system that we've added into Diablo 3 in the last year. It's called traits. So what are traits? Well, essentially they're passive skills. They are ways that you can customize and modify and essentially kind of role play with your character and diversify your character builds. So you gain them as you level up. It's basically every other level. You don't get a point every level, but I think it's every odd numbered level you get a trait point. And really the goal of these is to alter your core attributes and aspects of your character. So if you have a barbarian and you want to be stronger, there's a trait for that. If you have a wizard and you want to focus a lot more on elemental skills, you have a trait for that. So, and a lot of it is also to take the opportunity to add flavor to the game world. So every trait has, in addition to just instructions on what it does, it has a little excerpt of some flavor text that tells you about the world, and it also is designed as a skill to sell you something about your character and your class. So I'm going to give you some examples of that. So here's a trait example for the barbarian called Inner Rage. So this highlights something really important about traits. They're not universal to all classes. Every class gets traits that are unique to them. There's some that carry over where it makes sense, but for the most part, they're very unique to each class. So we want to sell the idea that the barbarian not only is an angry dude, which you probably have figured that out already, but that he actually gets power through his rage. And so we have a cool name for it, and also some text that kind of tells you about that. For the wizard, a lot of the traits take on more of a magical bent. We want to make sure that we sell the idea that even when the wizard's not casting, magic missiles and summoning up tornadoes, that there's just something inherently magic about her. So here we have a trait called Prismatic Cloak that essentially makes all of her armor spells more powerful. And it's the idea that she's just focused on this one ability such that she's amped them up. And again, we put some nice flavor text that basically sells the idea of if you choose to be this kind of wizard, this is who you are. That's something wrong with this thing. I don't know. Yeah, I think the clicker's broken. So why did we decide to do this system? Well, there's a bunch of reasons. The main one's character customization, and those of you who know and love the original Diablo and Diablo 2 know that character customization is a huge part of the game. And if you're new to Diablo, that's what it's all about. So that was a big focus for us. We used to have a system in Diablo 2 where you could spend attribute points on all your core attributes. And this system was much loved as a customization tool, but in actuality, when we looked at it, most of the builds took the exact same points in the exact same areas, even across classes. And so we didn't really feel like it was a good customization system. So traits was really specifically to address the removal of attribute point spending. So as I mentioned before, you want a strong barbarian, somebody who hits really hard, maybe he's really tough. There's traits for that. You can take Legendary Might, which increases your strength. You can take Iron Skin, which gives you more actual armor. But let's say you want a Berserker Barbarian. You care more about attack rate, hitting the enemy before they can hit you back. Well, there's traits for that can increase your attack rate, can increase the power of your debuffs on enemies. So more variety equals more builds. Every class now has roughly 30 traits, and those traits you can spend between 1 to 5 points in them. That adds up to roughly right now about 90 points per character. And when you consider that you can only get about 29, 30 trait points, it's a lot of customization. So even if we look at this and decide, well, maybe this is too many traits, we'll just reduce the point spending in it because we want to keep the customization really high. So, and one of the last reasons that we really wanted to do this is that there was always a bad decision to make in the previous skill trees where you knew that a passive skill like this, if I take this, it gives me more armor. That's a good skill, and mathematically it makes sense, but math kind of sucks. Like, this is, if Diablo is the active skill, then this guy's passive. Like, I want to spend points in Whirlwind. I don't want to spend points in more armor. So by separating the passive skills from the more active attack skills, which are now completely take up the skill system, we get a much better decision point. Yes. Awesome. Glad you like it. So the last thing is making numbers awesome. So how do you make math cool? Well, we tried to set it on fire and put skulls behind it, and you know, that makes it pretty cool, but it wasn't really enough. So a lot of the design behind the trait system is, if we're going to have you take a passive trait, I don't want it to be like, oh, if you take this trait, you get 0.1% more armor. 0.1% doesn't sound very awesome. So for us, it's like, no, it's a big number. It's 25, 50, 100% more. Whatever number basically sounds cool when we get it. So we're really working on the system to make sure that these don't feel like weird numbers that you're not sure what to do. Diablo customization is very straightforward. The idea is very, you know, simple to grasp, and that's important to us. So we don't consider the system done yet, so I love to share kind of our process with all of you. What's on our to-do list? Well, the UI is not awesome, and it's okay for me to say that because I designed it. So I'm not, you know, maybe my UI artist I can probably, but he just does what I say. So it's just a grocery list right now, and it's not very fun to use. Gaining them every other level isn't perfect. It may be fine, we may ship with that, but right now it feels kind of like, it feels a little weird, like you don't almost know when your trait points are going to show up, and that doesn't feel awesome. So, and there's probably too many of them. Like, when I talk about making numbers awesome, if you go and play with the trait system, because it's fully playable on the floor, you're probably going to say, hey, I thought he said the numbers were going to be awesome. This just seems like too much decisions or too low in numbers. And the truth is, you're probably right. Like, we're looking at that now and saying, maybe we didn't quite get it right. All right, I'm going to pass it back to Kevin.
So before we get directly into the talisman, I want to talk a little bit about charms from Diablo 2. So the charm system, if you're not familiar with it, was a very simple cost-benefit thing, that there was these objects that would sit in your inventory. They take up some of your inventory space, but they would give you a wide variety of bonuses. So this was good. We liked the concept behind the system, and we liked the charms themselves. But what it led to was people keeping as many charms as they could and keeping a tiny bit of inventory space. And we didn't think that that was a great choice to have to make. And you couldn't really resist taking the charms because they augmented your build so well. So, how have we solved this? The talisman, click, there we go, is a dedicated inventory for your charms. Yeah, I know, I feel the same way every time I put a charm in there instead of into my bag. So, not only that, it gets bigger over time. It keeps all of the advantages of the Diablo 2 charm system. You have more charms than you can fit in there, so you still have to choose, pick and choose which ones you're going to have to augment your build. So now that we had a better spot to put your charms and a much nicer spot to put your charms for your sake, we wanted to work on the charms themselves. So how have charms evolved? Well, the bonuses for charms in Diablo 2 were very incredibly varied. There was almost no sort of bonus that they didn't have. And in Diablo 3, we're going to have them concentrate on your core attributes. So this is very much about customizing your build, about augmenting, what weaknesses you have or making your strengths better, etc. So the charms are going to be a core part of your build, so they're still very important. And there's different tiers of them in the game, so as you go forward, you're going to be playing with your charms a lot. As you choose new skills, you'll be choosing different charms to try to make up for the options that you chose. And that is the talisman.
My name is Julian Love. I'm the lead technical artist on Diablo 3, and I'm going to talk to you about skill runes today. So we haven't talked about skill runes for quite a while. In fact, we kind of gave them the year off last year to let them percolate a little bit, but they're back. And they're in the game, and you can play them here at the show. They're fully implemented in the Witch Doctor, the Wizard, and the Barbarian. And I would urge you to just head on over at some point today and play the game and give skill runes a try. So, here. Just a quick update, getting up to speed with where we are with runes. If you remember, runes are a system for modifying your skills. They drop in the world like gems do, but instead of putting them in your items to modify what your items do, you put these in your skills and modify what your skills do. So really, skill runes are a huge customization feature for your characters. And usually when we think about character customization, people think about things like skin color or hairstyle or maybe gear. But really, the skills that you pick for your character is a huge part of character customization. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. We have an Amazon here in the front row. Can I get you to stand up? All right. So let's give it up for the Amazon. It's a great costume. But you're not just any Amazon. You're a Spirazon, right? Or are you a Throwazon? That looks like a Spirazon to me. Okay, great. So that's an example of what I'm talking about. She's not just an Amazon. We didn't just make sorceresses and barbarians. We made Spirazons. We made Frenzy Barbs. We made Nova Sorceresses, things like that. So we're really going to blow the lid off of this idea with skill runes by providing a whole lot more builds. Now, how many more builds are we going to provide? Well, I kind of get curious about this. So I enlisted the help of some programmers to help me out because I blow things up for a living. And they came back with this outrageous number. It's huge. I'm going to help you out with it. It's 96,886,000,000, blah, 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 roughly 97 billion builds per class. Okay, so that's a really big number. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around it. So let me kind of clarify exactly what we're talking about. Okay, so this is the number of skill combinations with runes that you can have per class. This does not include things like traits, gear, dyes, charms, anything like that. This is purely active skills, okay? So you're really going to be able to come up with just a ton of different kinds of class combinations. But it's not just about numbers. Skill runes are going to provide a whole lot more. And one of the key things to keep in mind here is that skill runes don't just change what a skill does, they have the potential to change the way it looks. Now, originally, we really weren't thinking about having different graphics for every single skill rune choice because it's a ton of work. And so we were looking at that and thinking, well, we'll just do the ones that seem interesting. But what we found along the way was if we didn't have a graphical change, the skill rune just felt kind of weak or even broken. And we found that everybody at the office would just gravitate towards using all of the skill runes that have graphics changes. So what we found is that this really kind of comes down to a fundamental question, which is, you know, we could just change all of the numbers underneath, you know, and give you like a numerical change. And we could do that, or we could just have the screen filled with like zombie bears, right? And which would you rather have? Right? Zombie bears. Okay, of course. All right. So, where are we at with skill runes? We still have 5 types of skill runes, only we've changed their names. They're now called Crimson, Indigo, Obsidian, Golden, and Alabaster. So why did we change this? Well, we had another system before where we named the runes according to the concept that was attached to them. So they were called things like multi-strike or energy. And multi-strike runes did multi-strike things, and energy runes did stuff with your resources. But we decided to change that because what we found as we were going along was that we kept coming up with ideas that just didn't fit with those concepts very well. So at first, you know, we had some concept that would fit really well, like we'd get some things that do like a multi-shot and they would fit. But then as we started coming up with really, really wacky ideas, it just became harder and harder to shoehorn them into that system. So I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about. On the screen right now is the Witch Doctor's new skill called Poison Dart. And let's see, what do we got? Obsidian rune. So that will slow monsters. And that kind of fit with the power rune before. So it wasn't too big a deal. But then we changed the skill so that we had another version that would make it a rapid fire skill. And that worked really good with multi-strike. But then we had this other wacky idea. We wanted the witch doctor to be able to shoot a live snake that would attach itself to monsters' faces and stun them. Where does that fit? It doesn't fit anywhere, right? So the answer was, okay, let's just change the names of the runes. And we can come up with as many wacky ideas like that as we want, and we just put them wherever we want, and it works. So next, runes now have ranks. There are 7 ranks. They increase as you progress through the game. Now, what do ranks do for runes? Here's what they do. They take whatever the rune does to a particular skill, and they just take that attribute and they make it extreme. Okay? So the easiest way to really get an understanding of how this works is to look at a skill and just see how the rune ranks change that skill. So we're going to look at Wizard's Magic Missile. You've seen this before probably. Here it is, unruned. It shoots 1 missile per cast. But then we're going to put an Indigo rune in it, rank 1. And now it shoots 2 missiles per cast. Now here's rank 7. You're going to need that in hell. So that brings us up to speed with what we've done with runes. And so I thought it would be a really good idea to just give you some examples of what kinds of things runes can do to skills by looking at some of the ones that we've designed. So here we have a skill for the barbarian called Weapon Throw. It allows him just to throw a big weapon. This is the Crimson rune. It just adds more damage, makes it kind of a one-shot skill. And then we have another one that allows you to throw a hammer that stuns characters, which is great for PvP. Then we have another one that, will cause confusion, which is a good crowd control version. Then we have one that ricochets for AoE. And then finally, we thought it'd be really cool to have an ability for the barbarian to throw a corpse. Because corpses are cool. So next up we have the wizard. And we brought back Hydra for the wizard. And here it is. It works just like the skill from D2. And then the Crimson rune changes them to Frost Hydras with a short-range breath attack. Then we also brought in a Lightning Hydra. Lightning Hydras never miss. Next up, we have an Arcane Hydra that shoots miniature arcane orbs for AoE damage. Then we decided to do an Acid Hydra because melting monsters is just a lot of fun. And then finally, we wanted to change things up again, get one of these really wacky ideas. One big Hydra head, but it has the Firewall attribute. Yeah. Okay. So next up, let's look at Plague of Toads on the Witch Doctor. This is the Crimson rune. It makes all of your frogs on fire. This fire is good. And then something a little bit more gameplay oriented. You've got mana reduction, so you can have a lot more frogs. And then we have Alabaster rune will blind monsters, which gives you some crowd control ability. And then we change the skill completely and make sort of a Toad Blizzard. Then finally, we wanted to have a giant toad. But what's he going to do? He's going to eat monsters. And he digests them, but he doesn't digest the loot, because that would not be so much fun.
All right, so unfortunately we are running a little bit late, so we're probably not going to have time for a Q&A session. After this, I'm going to cover arenas fairly quickly. I want to let you all know that tomorrow we have a full hour of open Q&A for Diablo 3. We also have another panel where we cover a lot of new content as well, including design, art, and programming content. We show new areas from part of the game that has never been seen before, and a lot of more stuff on characters, specifically armor and armor systems. So, battle arenas. This is basically our first approach to PvP, and hopefully not our last. So the vision for battle arenas is a dedicated place for all your dueling needs. Dueling was a massive part of Diablo 2, and a lot of people really love to duel. Do we have any people here who like dueling? Anyone? Yeah, I know. You guys like to kill each other. You should just try to get along. We know you like to kill each other, and Diablo 2 really didn't support it very well. So we were really focused from the very beginning with Diablo 3 to make sure that we corrected that mistake. So, an overview of the battle arenas. It's focused on team-based play, and the reason for this is, as Julian mentioned, we have like 97 billion builds. So the idea that every build is perfectly balanced versus every other build is not going to happen. We definitely want to get all the class balance a lot better than it was in Diablo 2, but the idea is that some of the builds are supposed to be better than others. That's the point. You're supposed to try and find the best PvP build. So focusing on more team-based play softens that issue a little bit, that issue of balance. So maybe if you go into the arena and you face a build you're weak to, your teammates can actually help you make up for that. It becomes more than just about your own build, but your team's build. So a lot of the arenas is really about building the perfect PvP character. So you will be taking characters that you get in PvE, items, skills, traits, everything you do, and taking it over into the battle arena. It is definitely a game about building a PvE character into a PvP monster. So there's lots of cool abilities. Here's the Witch Doctor and Wizard to show off a bunch. We got some zombie bears in there. That's a crowd favorite. Blizzard, which is a great crowd control and attack spell. Teleport, which the Wizard uses in just a second. Meteor. There's a lot of awesome skills, and a lot of them work great across both PvE and PvP, and some of them are designed specifically for PvP. If you go, and if you've ever looked at any of the skills that we've shown in the previous BlizzCon and gone, I don't know how I'd use that in PvE, it actually might be a PvP skill, because several of them we specifically focus for there. So the PvE game has a lot of control in it. There's lots of freezing enemies and stomping on the ground and stunning everything. But we didn't want the PvP game to be all about crowd control, where you would basically be sitting around waiting for the opportunity to move. So a big part of our PvP design is all about counters. Counters that break you out of any kind of crowd control. So here we have the Witch Doctors using Horrify to fear the Barbarian, and the Barbarian is using Ignore Pain to break out of that. And there's also just tons of cool tricks. For example, we can teleport, freeze, meteor, bye-bye. So the arenas is fully playable on the floor, so I encourage you all to go over and, reach out and beat the crap out of your friend. So we set up a round mechanic, and essentially the goal of this is when we played the game, one round was never enough. We would see what our other team was, but we wouldn't have a chance to react to that. So the game is played as a best 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 5. We haven't figured out exactly what the great round count is, but we're going to be working on that, and we'd appreciate feedback on that. So we're going to do a lot of focus on BattleNet with the arenas and PvP. We will have matchmaking, so you'll be able to form a team or just randomly jump in. It will be skill-based, so we'll try and look and match teams equally against one another. We are trying to figure out a way to do custom games. We know that while our arenas are team-based, there's a lot of you that are going to want to do a specific team versus your friend's specific team, and maybe outside of the ranking systems. And you're going to want to do one-on-ones, even though the game's not going to be super great balance for that. We know you're going to want to do it, so we're definitely focused on finding a way to make that really easy for you to do. And the last one is more of a progression-based ranking system. So if you've played StarCraft 2, you know it's very much what we call a skill-based ranking system, where when you play against one another, you each get a rank, and if your rank's higher, you get to make fun of your friend. So we want you to be able to make fun of your friends, but here it's more about doing it in the arenas. So if you play in the arenas, if you win, you're going to get points, and those points are going to progress your rank. They're going to give you titles, vanity rewards, achievements, lots of basically things that are not focused on power, but focused on showing how dedicated you are to PvP. As you continue to play through, even if you lose, you'll also get points in progression. So, as I said, I don't think we have time for Q&A, maybe, but if not, then I really appreciate everybody coming, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
For attending the Diablo 3.
BlizzCon 2010 just keeps on rolling here live on DirecTV. The fans are here, the costumes are here as they get ready for the costume contest tonight. And of course, there's lots of gameplay for Diablo 3, World of Warcraft Cataclysm, and brand new mods for StarCraft 2. Hello, everybody. We are back here on DirecTV. I'm Jeff Keighley, along with Cat Hunter and 20,000 die-hard Blizzard fans. And the line's Cat here to play Diablo 3 right behind us. It's a huge line.
They are. It's amazing. I had to ask what it was because I couldn't figure out what was wrapping around so far. It was people waiting to play.
It's very exciting. We're PvP. Throwing out pens. It's so exciting, Cat Hunter.
Everywhere.
All right. Well, Diablo 3 is here. Obviously, the brand new Demon Hunter class is playable. It looks like everyone, from what I can see, is playing that class. And that was just the Diablo 3 gameplay panel where Jay Wilson sort of talked people through some of the new changes that they're doing to Diablo 3. They keep doing those panels every year, and no one got to ask questions because they were running a little late. So hopefully we're going to get Jay here on stage, and people can ask him the questions they wanted right here live on stage.
We definitely are going to be able to do that. And what they're probably trying to do is make up for the time lapse of the fact the opening ceremonies went a little late, so they had to cut Q&A off this one. But there is definitely going to be more developer information that will be available on the other panels, and you can watch it on any channel that we have.
That's right, because this year on our virtual ticket online, you guys can go to blizzcon.ravi.com and watch 4 different streams of the BlizzCon conference. There's the main stage with Kat and I, but if you don't like us, we're annoying, you just want to see the direct info, you can go to the other 4 channels and watch the RTS tournament stage. You can also watch the World of Warcraft stage. And then there's also another stage for a bunch of other panels that are going on. But on our main channel here, we've got a lot of great interviews. And coming up in this half hour, the man who started Blizzard, along with 2 other folks, Mike Morheim, will be here live on the stage. So if you guys have questions for Mike, send them to us on Twitter. Cat Hunter is at Cat Hunter, and I'm at Jeff Keighley. Easy to remember, and we'll get those questions in front of Mike to hear what's happening from Blizzard in the future. It's always fun to have him here.
It is, and we're glad to have him here, and I'm excited to hear his impression of what's happened over Blizzard over the last year, because we've seen a little bit of the segments, but I want to hear straight from him, so we're excited.
Well, Mike will be here in a little bit, but right now we're going to hear straight from Paul Sams, another executive at Blizzard, and he's going to tell you some interesting facts and figures about BlizzCon 2010. Paul Sams, take it away.
All right, well, did you know that if you lined up all of the chairs at BlizzCon, they would extend to 8 miles? I bet you didn't know that BlizzCon takes about 850,000 square feet to